important issues in, but the fourth quarter is a little unique in that there's no quarter we can push them in if we're going to stay on track. Because if you remember, it's on our 2022 goals, keep us on track to accomplishing our 2025 goals. So I'll move right here. So state governmental relations plan, that's complete. City council packets, city board meeting packets online, and broadcasting, that's complete. We've been posting those online on Fridays, the same day that we get them. Phase 3 street resurfacing is underway. That should start momentarily, right?
It should. It's been awarded to Wiregrass Construction, and any day now.
Yeah. So organizational structure of city staff council appointments modified to fit current city need. That was completed. Water board governance change to add members of the water board. Check. City fees for services, evaluating recommendations for change presented to the city council. We did that recently. Conduct a joint meeting with Enterprise City Schools and Enterprise State Community College. That was complete. Didn't wind up exactly like we had it mapped out, but we accomplished our goals there. Start on the ADVA infrastructure obligations. That is complete, right? We've started.
We have.
Yeah. So our goals that are not completed, it's a comprehensive plan. So give us an update on that. We're doing good, right?
Yeah. So our comprehensive plan with KPS is significantly underway. We anticipate a first draft in November of this year. So it'll require hopefully a lot of input from you all once you see kind of what we have envisioned working through staff in the mayor's office with KPS. We'll also have some recommendations in there with our regarding our subdivision regulations and our zoning ordinances and our zoning regulations that are in there. So and we'll probably make some staff recommendations, that things that we're having issues with or see that we could be maybe doing more proactively. Of course, it's up to you on whether or not to adopt them or if you have questions about those. So we see that first draft as a good pause moment to interact with you all and maybe even do something like we're doing now.
Yeah, have a special work session for that. Yeah, and it sounds like this is a big project, big boulder rolling down the hill. We don't need council action to spur that on. It's happening, right?
It is.
Even if we don't meet a December 31st deadline, the priority here is to get it right.
Correct.
So looks like we're all right. Phase 4 street resurfacing in planning phase. So our goal was to have 3 underway, which it is phase 4 in planning phase.
Yeah, and if you recall, we broke. Really, phase 3 was a large chunk, and we broke it into 2, an A and a B. And you could really say that
that's 3 and 4.
3B is 3 and 4. Moreover, you've hit your 60% target for your PCI rating for the streets. So all streets after phase 3 is done, 3A, be at 67%. So from there, we look to transition, what would be your phase 4, as you're calling it. That would be kind of in an annual maintenance cycle at that point, where we're looking at streets and, hopefully somewhere between $1 and $2 million a year. We're budgeting to take care of streets.
And keep us above that level.
Keep it above the 60 PCI, yes, sir.
All right. Recreation center and pool under construction.
So I think they had tomorrow, they're having a pre-bid meeting for the recreation center and aquatics center, the pool. That'll be a mandatory meeting for anybody interested in the bid, so that the bid documents have been released. I think they close maybe October 27th. Is that correct? Yeah. So October 27th be the close, and then we'll open them, see kind of where we're at in the budget, and then we'll report back to you at the first meeting in November, kind of let you know, we're on target, we're off target. Do we want to cut parts of the project? Do we still want the project to go forward, or hey, everything just went perfect and we're ready to start?
Has there been good interest in that, Barry?
I run up here because the people on YouTube, you can't hear if you don't come to the microphone.
Thank you.
So we've contacted about roughly 10 to 12 GCs at this point. Favorable. About half of those have committed that they would be there at the meeting on Wednesday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Civic Center. It's mandatory pre-bid. So I'm hopeful. I talked to the architect this morning. They're hopeful we'll have a good set of bidders. We've also got several subcontractors that will be there as well. Everybody from site to different pieces and parts of the project, they'll be there. So we can connect the subcontractors with the GCs. Some of the GCs that are coming from out of town, but there's a lot of local subcontractors that are here. So we're trying to connect those two together. I think that'll help us get a better team, and it'll also help us with bid prices.
All right.
Can I back up just real quick to the
Yeah.
street resurfacing? I understand we keep talking about the average, and I know that is the goal. But that being the average, what if there are a few streets left in town that are still way below the average number when we get to the end of phase 3? Is that
There will be. There's some in 3A. There was still some single-digit PCI numbers there. There was also some low 40s that were there. You can't just look at the number of the score and say whether or not that was a good road or a bad road. Some of them, from the surface or from patching, looks really bad. So we did 3A. That's the start of constructions tomorrow. I talked to the contractor today, so they've got a list of streets that they're going to tackle over the next week. They'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow, Thursday. I guess I'm pushing this week ahead of day. They'll start on Thursday this week with those streets. 3B, we're going to tackle the majority of the ones there, and I'll tell you this, Councilman, that after we get through with 3B, we've pretty much gotten all the poor score roads, with the exception of the ones that we've got water or utility issues on that we've got to work with our utilities guys to get those fixed up. There'll be no more in those really poor scores that don't have a high-risk utility.
so there'll be a reason for those?
There will be a reason for that.
Every time we put a list out, I've got a list of people that want to hit me up because their street's not on the list. That it is not in that great a shape. So I've been just asking them to hold on. We're not done.
That's right.
We may have water or sewage issues on that street, but
That's the
don't want
goal
to get
for-
into specific streets right here tonight. But
The goal for 3B is to get the rest of those low number streets, low PCI streets that do not have a high risk utility, to get those into the 3B list. And talking to Polly, which is putting the plans together on that, hopefully next 30, 45 days, we'll have that list go to bid for 3B. Goal being when they get off 3A, I'd love for them to roll right into 3B. Let's get the rest of that 3B list complete.
Yeah, I think Greg makes a good point. I mean, the average, which is kind of what we stated as our goal, I think is a good tool. It's a good ideal for us to strive for, but the average means nothing if the street you live on is a 1.
That's correct. But there will be a reason to answer your question. There will be a reason if it has not been paved by the end of 3B.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just need to know what to tell people.
Yes, sir.
All right. Develop a plan to address workforce development issues within the city of Enterprise. So I guess the council needs to determine right now if we've accomplished this goal or not. So Jonathan, why don't you just get us all on the same page as where we are here?
Yeah. So if you recall, we talked about workforce. We've been to just about every industry in town, met with them at various points. Some of you could make it, some of you couldn't as we went around there. But unanimously, to the one, it was, hey, we need people. I could hire 20 people today. I could hire 40 people today. So and that's in, it doesn't matter if it's our hospital. Here at the city, we have 25 to 30 vacancies right now. Everybody has a workforce issue, and that's not uncommon in the state or the nation right now. And so, what I heard the council and Mayor Cooper say is smart communities that want to get out ahead of this. 20, 30, 40 years from now, what have we done to set the table to differentiate Enterprise? And we had stakeholders that we reached out to that involved Fort Rucker, the business community that I just mentioned, Enterprise City Schools, Enterprise State Community College. And because the city's not in the workforce development business, I think everybody said, well, who is? How do we address this? And we identified Enterprise State Community College as the best avenue to address a workforce issue. and align those with what the businesses in our community need to turn out skilled labor for the jobs they have available. And so in those meetings, we had the college come and present a solution to address that. Part of that was that they don't have space to teach trade skills or welding or you name it, and they needed modular space to do that. And so they made a request for $500,000 a year from the council, from the city, for the next 20 years to help fund a workforce development center that will be focused singularly on workforce development needs for the business community in Enterprise, Alabama, for now and in perpetuity. And so what you have on your agenda tonight is kind of the result of the mayor and I and the city attorney taking your intent back with the college and the 2-year system and negotiating an agreement that would do just that. And if you were to approve this tonight, in my opinion, it would accomplish your goal because, as I said, you're not in the workforce development business. It's not like you can get a road paved or do this. There's no executable item. So you would have funded a solution, and then it would be up to Enterprise State Community College to implement that solution. So
Is everybody satisfied with that? Calling this goal complete? I didn't want to just take
I think
it upon
so.
us.
I mean, developing a plan that I think we've done that.
Yeah.
Obviously, workforce development is a forever ongoing process that we'll never be done with. And I think we probably need to revisit our plan frequently to make sure it's on
Of
track.
course.
But as far as I think I can agree with it, the plan is definitely moving forward.
All right. If y'all remember right, we decided the last quarter to remove this next item, city services offer at 5700 building. So we determined that was not feasible.
Do we know if the issue with the being able to sign up for water service online has been resolved?
yes, it has.
Okay.
There was a switch or something that was turned off manually internally, and it's been.
The reason I bring this up for everybody else is that was one of the main things, because we could allow people to sign up for water service online, and then I discovered that was not
It was
working.
not working.
And so I brought it to Jonathan Mayer's attention, and Jeremy, I think, jumped on
We've
it.
taken permissions away from, so it was an accident that had happened, but we've removed the possibility that there will be another accident in the future.
Okay. I think that fixes and solves that issue right there anyway. So.
Okay. City training and development plan implemented. Says we're on track here. I know y'all done multiple things.
So we went with the NeoGov platform to offer, various training modules. Some of those deal with things like customer service, which I know is a big point of emphasis as we talk about touch points for the staff and people that are interacting with the community, whether or not you're paying a bill or doing an inspection on a job site. We have hundreds of interactions daily with the public. And so, how do we get our staff trained to, do things like conflict resolution or, we currently weren't offering anything. So this NeoGov platform has 1,200 classes that are available for our department heads to go through and develop training, for their department, and then for our HR department for citywide. And then we also have the ability to create our own modules within the system and upload those and track the progress of, subordinates within our respective areas. And so the first part of that was training the department heads on how to use that. And that was done September 8th and September 13th at Enterprise State Community College in multi-purpose room. All the department heads met for 2 sessions, got onboarded on that, and now we're uploading those, and they're having a chance to go through, get their people uploaded and trained on those individual platforms. So,
All right. We won't discuss this next item about police staffing in detail, as we typically discuss those issues offline. So next item Staff will list all external touch points doing business with the city. Believe y'all plan on doing that this quarter.
This quarter, and we have we actually just at our department head meeting this morning, we talked about that. We have set internally a November 1 deadline to get that information to the mayor and me, so that we can disseminate that to you to see if that met your intent. Because it is a little vague when we say all external touch points. You know, what does that mean? I said, do what it means to you in your department. You know, where we interact with the public, where we might take payment, where we might have respond to a call or whatever, and just list them all, quick list, and then we'll get it back to you for feedback.
And if I recall, this was part of just an overall concern of the council of was it a weakness of ours that we didn't the overall experience of dealing with the city. What we desire is that it be a pleasurable and efficient experience, and we're like, well, we don't even know who all we deal with, so we just wanted a list that we could look at maybe next year going into actually, I think this training is going to be a big part of that, but then also, not only being business friendly, but being customer friendly, being other government friendly, being all of those things. So.
Councilman, I will add that we're coming up in the next few months. I believe that we'll have the ability to implement a new website, potentially an app, as we go into next year. Our Munis system will be upgraded, and so we had a meeting on that. Again, Jeremy kind of explained some of the the new bells and whistles that will be on that, and we will have an ability for people at some point in next year. I comfortably say maybe mid-year next year, that people can go on and they see a pothole in the road and just report it, and it would get logged into our system. So I think those are on the cusp of happening, where we have better ability to respond and have notification that something's going on, because staff can't fix things that they don't know about.
Right.
So I think it'll be mutually beneficial for us and for the public.
Well, yeah, you could fix everything if you would just monitor Facebook. It's all out there, right?
Yeah.
Just joking.
All right. So our unfinished Q3 goals, if you'll flip the page there, a spec building, as you can see, we were looking for options for site, budget, and timeline needed. Note here says that the site's been identified and the industrial park negotiations are underway with a prospect. IDB board has already approved it. Anything for council to do there in the Q4?
Potentially. And what that would look like is depending on what the needs were. So typically a spec building, and I guess we can look at it two ways. In this case, we mentioned a prospect. But in a typical spec building, you wouldn't have somebody that's ready to move into it. You're talking about just building a building to show it like.
Yeah, it's no longer speculative if we have a tenant, right?
So if the council wanted to move forward with a speculative building, whether or not we were to secure a tenant or not, there would need to be funding that went along with that. And where would that funding come from? So it's easier if you have a tenant, right? Because then you have a revenue stream to pledge against it. But that tenant could leave, or so that's kind of the worst case scenario. Is you build a spec building and you're on the hook to make payments until it's paid off. So if you took out a 10-year note to pay it off, you could not have a tenant in it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So that would be the action that I would see the council needing to take if we move forward with this understanding that there is risk, and is it a measured risk, and is it something you still want to pursue?
Yeah. So I guess the question is do we move forward with this, and then aside from that, do we also start planning for a speculative building? Because by the time we even got this one off the ground, we found a tenant, or potentially we have a tenant for it. So I would rather do one after the other, just from a risk profile standpoint. I mean, what's your feedback on that?
Yeah, I think there's no amount of problems that can't be cured with with money, right? From this list. So I think we would need to see what the overall cost and impact of the budget would be before I could give you a good answer.
So let's just keep working on what we're working on before we pile something else on top. So everybody on board with that. Pickleball courts.
So we did have an architect come finally. So we met with the architect last week, and I think it was Thursday or Friday last week. Barry, is that accurate? Did McKee and Associates, when we met with the architect for the pickleball courts, was that was last week on Thursday or Friday? So right now we're still looking at the same budget. I won't say that out loud right now in case we have to go to bid or anything like that. But we do have a budget in mind, not to exceed. So it was suggested that we design to the budget, and if that gets us, 5 pickleball courts or it gets us 15 pickleball courts, that's what we end up with, and maybe we implement it in a phased approach. But the site looked good. We would have to remove the existing surface out there at the community college on the tennis courts. It's beyond repair. But the foundation in actual site is site ready. So we have a lot less work to do, which is good for us. And the utilities are there, which was another positive piece of feedback that we got from the architect's visit. So the architect, at no cost to the city, is going to send back a design and a preliminary budget estimate on what that would look like. So I feel
Not
pretty
construction ready design, just a.
I think we'll be close.
Really good.
I talked to him today. We got the topo back and submitted that to him today, and he said that within a couple of weeks he'll give us a kind of a proposed master plan and a proposed construction cost for doing that. If we want to move forward with that, either one of those, then we'd work on a contract with them if we decided that that's what we want to do.
Okay. So, all right. Speeding and traffic issues. Where are we at on that? It says report needed. So we just need to incorporate this into our comprehensive plan.
I'll let Barry talk here, but that's kind of the guidance. We have a couple other issues with nuisance properties and everything, but I think rather than bring you multiple ordinances or things to do one at a time, if we were just to look at this and have another work session just like this one, when we talk about that draft of our comprehensive plan, zoning, all that, and we just vet all the issues that we've run into, and then approve them kind of in one fell swoop by adopting the new, zoning regulations or the new subdivision regulations. I think that would be easier on you, and it would be easier on us. But I'm open to discuss that.
So when we have that future work session on our comprehensive plan, this can be a topic of conversation. Is that what we're saying?
I would expect that.
Okay.
And as Councilman Townsend had asked about this, and I think somebody else had asked about speed humps or traffic calming devices, and there were some really good pros and cons as we went through that, and I just think they deserve some time to be vetted. Some of those things involve slower emergency response time. So if it's fine if there's a speed hump on your street, but if there's one on every street to get to your street, it could reduce the response time for fire or rescue squad, which minutes are lives in a lot of instances, is something that they brought up. They have to slow down. They can't obviously do that. It could do damage to the vehicle. It could upset the patient. So those were some of the cons, and obviously they do work and they can work. But then we go through the process of what procedure do we bring this to either the mayor or the council to approve a speed hump, because if Councilman Johnson wants it, but he's the only person that wants it on his street, should we put in a speed hump or should we not? So there's just a lot of issues like that we think would be relevant to discuss before we just say, hey, here's what we should do, because it's not that simple.
Okay. Business license fixes. We just need to. We've all been given some suggestions from staff on fixing some of the business license stuff. So
2 weeks ago, at the last council meeting, I think you received something that was prepared by our CFO in Revenue Office. We have received no feedback at this point, but would be happy to do that either at this work session or at a future time, or you can just send me, the mayor, an email.
So we obviously need to pass this probably the first meeting in November, which means we need to introduce it in the next 2 weeks. So my suggestion would be that y'all get us an ordinance to introduce in 2 weeks, and if anybody has any feedback, they need to hear that ASAP.
We just don't want to make changes that are counter to what we tried to provide you were the arguments that we heard from various business owners or people in the community that had an issue, and we described those in detail in one column.
Right.
And then made the appropriate recommendation in another column. And to the extent that meets your goals, we're happy to make those changes. But if they don't, we also need to know so that we can adjust.
From a revenue standpoint, none of these move. They're not going to move the needle on our budget revenue picture. Some of it's just fixing it to original intent. Maybe some
clarification of language in some instances. Some of it could have minimal impact, but to be honest, we didn't look at this through the lens of what's this going to do for revenue. It was, is this the right thing to do? Is it fair? Is it equitable to everybody? And those are the discussions we framed it with. Not is this going to get us $10 more, $10 less?
Well, my feedback on that is I didn't see anything blatantly wrong with any of the recommendations staff made. So
yeah, that's my feedback too.
That's kinda
I
how I
reviewed
didn't
it.
really-
Everything looked reasonable to me.
I didn't have anything I felt like changing, which is why you didn't hear from me. So.
Yeah, I agree too.
Okay.
It was
All right, so we'll if y'all could just get that to us next council meeting, we'll get that passed in November. Storm sewer, same thing as the speeding and traffic issues, right? We're gonna include that in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so I think, and obviously there's some of these are kind of time sensitive. So the sooner we act, the better, because if we do make some changes, we want to prevent future problems from happening. But I do think that they deserve to be discussed in a public setting and to get input from all of you. And I think that's how the better decisions are going to be made on this, so that we don't get too tunnel focused on bureaucracy. In a lot of instances, from a staff's perspective, we might not see it the same way you do in talking to your constituents. So.
And then our lateral transfer policy needed for all positions. So staff has produced some recommendations on that, and it's under review now.
So I think we have a fix for lateral transfers that we can execute and actually have to some degree at the mayor's discretion, and that's in the policy manual now. And we have utilized that for things for understaffed positions already. So what I'm waiting on now is HR to have external legal counsel review the new policy manual to make sure that it's good.
If y'all remember, this is just empowering staff and department heads and the mayor to hire somebody for the experience they have in a position as opposed to the experience they have with the city. So, all right. So I would say a good Q4 goal on that would be just to have that implemented, right?
Yes, sir. That'd be great.
All right. So reviewing the Q3 here, and then we'll go back to our annual to solidify our Q4 goals. So the spec building, we're just going to move forward with what we're doing with that. Pickleball courts, I wrote down, that a Q4 goal on that would be to have a go or no go on it. I mean, is that, you think we'll?
Yeah, I think so. If that holds true, that we can have even construction plans in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think we could easily make that a Q4 goal.
Yeah. Okay. Then the speeding and traffic issues is going to be rolled into the comprehensive plan. Business license fixes, we're going to pass that in November. Storm sewer and drainage issues, we're going to incorporate in the comprehensive plan, and the lateral transfer policy is going to be implemented in Q4. So we had accumulated some future issues here: electric vehicle charging stations, short-term rental ordinance, interior roads from ALDOT, southern bypass 4-lane, need to explore a land bank and redevelopment of blighted and hollowed out areas, and PV park goals. Those last two I've recently added. But so let's talk about what we need to do in the fourth quarter to accomplish our 2022 goals and any other goals that we may have. So, Jonathan, anything specific on the comprehensive plan, if we're going to have that done?
I would say, since I just briefed you that we would have a draft in November, I would say, that would be a good goal, is to have
a work session.
Work session and a draft document for your review in fourth quarter.
Draft in November, and then a work session. Everybody good with having an intensive, purpose-driven work session? So just on comprehensive plan. All right, phase 4 street resurfacing and planning phase. I mean, if we're calling 3B, I mean, it's the fourth phase. I mean, that's in planning, right, Glenn? Yeah. So we've accomplished that then, right?
Yes.
So there's nothing to do. Recreation center and pool under construction. Again, nothing much the council needs to be working on.
No, I mean, it really just a go or a no go at that point, because you'll have the bids in.
Yeah. All right. City training and development plan implemented. So what's a Q4 goal to make sure that we've got that?
I would say that that we have citywide training assigned from HR, and then by department. So
okay. The staffing vacancies in the police department, maybe we need to just have a briefing from Chief Moore at some point in the near future.
I think that would be wise.
You've probably already got most of that prepared, don't you, Chief Moore? Okay. And then looks like this last goal is just it's already stated as it needs to be stated, right? Staff will list all external touch points.
Correct.
Yeah.
We should have a comprehensive list for you,
Yeah.
Q4.
So we've got about 15 minutes that we can continue to discuss anything. I mean, does anybody have any other issues that they want to add that have not already been stated? Now, keep in mind we'll have a intensive annual strategic planning session. We'll have that every year. That'll be our Q1 and our annual. So we'll revisit the 5-year and the 1-year plans, which it'll be a 3-year at that point, won't it? Yeah, 23, 24, 25. So it'll be a 3-year plan and a 1-year plan, and then a quarterly plan. We'll do that either late in the year or at the beginning of January. So keep that in mind. But are there any issues that y'all are aware of that we don't have on our radar right now?
Mr. President, I know we've talked about sidewalk repairs and been doing that also, but I know we've talked about specific sidewalks, but I would like to see something just to kind of assess sidewalks older sidewalks downtown in general to include that in that
You know,
conversation or what we're doing.
it's
already
interesting you bring that
sidewalks.
up. The four of us were at a Economic Development Academy meeting last week, and that was a topic of conversation was pedestrian and bicycle traffic, and the accommodations for those. So I actually, after that meeting, went and found. I sent it to Jonathan. I should have sent it to y'all, but the state of Alabama has a pedestrian and bicycle traffic plan, and it was interesting reading. I hadn't read. It was over 100 pages long. I hadn't read all of it, but there's a lot of work that has gone into this. A lot of research. I know you're also talking about specific needs in the city to repair and replace, but it was, I think all that needs to be done kind of with a comprehensive approach. I mean, Jonathan, do you have a feel for what kind of attention will be paid for that in our comprehensive plan?
Honestly, I know that SANE has been asked to look at that. Part of the Safe Streets for All grant that you authorized us to apply for as a federal grant through DOT will look at that. Pedestrian crosswalks, signalization, those kind of things. But I mean, really, we would need to engage an external agency. I almost think similar to what you did with the streets in terms of, assessing the sidewalks and then, who's responsible for them. I think there's still some gray area, at least from my perspective, and maybe even our other staff members about, newer neighborhoods that were built with sidewalks, whose responsibility it is to maintain those sidewalks. And that's, maybe
and what obligation do they have to maintain?
Correct. And then, but when we talk about, I don't think we're equipped to talk about, we get an idea similar to the TAP grant that we did, right? We try to implement that, and this is where we want to go. But I don't think anybody's really looked holistically at the city to see what areas could use bike or pedestrian, or if we always say sidewalks, but could a stripe down the side of the road do the same thing? I don't know, and that's not my area of expertise. So that's one of those things that I would, and Barry, I don't know, you or Glenn may have more experience in that. If you want to come up and pontificate, that might be.
I think the way Jonathan said is, I agree. We have not looked at the entire city to see what sidewalks we have and in what repair those sidewalks are. We did put a budget line item in for the engineering department to go out and do a per linear foot, like we did last year, do this as many feet, kind of do a sidewalk contract. So as we prioritize the sidewalks that we need to get repaired or installed, that we had a mechanism to do that, but we don't know how many linear feet of sidewalks we have in the city, which ones are in good shape, which ones need repair, which areas need to have sidewalks that we currently don't have. We do not have that data. That's something that we could pull together if that's your desire, is to figure out how to get that data and put together a plan for that. So far, over the last year and a half, it's been to look at the sidewalks, especially in that downtown area that are broken up or not functioning well as a sidewalk, to get those repaired. And there's more sidewalks down there that need to be repaired. But is it build new sidewalks? Is it repair the other sidewalks it's got? I don't have that data. I don't even know how many sidewalks we have within the city limits.
How do we stand on the contract that was left to repair sidewalks now?
It's to put a number on it, we're 95% complete. They've got most of those done. There's some finished sanding in areas that they need to get finished up, and there may be one or two small areas that we have rejected the work to be repaired. But we're 95%. We're right there, ready to close that contract out. We did have a discussion today with the contractor about getting those last items done, and they're working now to get those last repairs done immediately, so we can close that contract out.
So I've added bicycle and pedestrian traffic. to our long-term issues list to make sure we keep that on the right. I mean, like I said, we talked about it last week. It's definitely. I'm glad you said that. It needs to be on our list here. Anything else?
No, I was going to say I sent a couple items both to Barry and to Thomas today on that from the meeting the other day on guides and checklists for checking your city and doing that. So I will send it to all of you too, so you can take a look at it too. There's some excellent stuff in there, but
I think at some point we're going to have a kind of a stated goal,
Yes.
mission, plan of the council that there's probably going to have to be some compromise and but like, where do we want to prioritize? Do we want to prioritize only on existing and getting those up to code? Do we want to start putting our resources into expanding those facilities? If so, what's our criteria?
Right.
From the roadside, the first priority was to find out what you have.
Yeah.
So maybe the first step is to do a survey of what sidewalks we do have within the city, to get those down on a map. And then while people are, if it's whether we do it in-house or we hire somebody to help us do this, as they're tracking, mapping these sidewalks, is actually rating them as in what condition they are in. I think that's kind of the first step before we know what is it going to take to maintain the sidewalks we currently have. But also, it would probably be nice to have, these are where the sidewalks are and here's where the sidewalks are not. I don't think we know what the plan is. Staff does not know what the plan is at this point, so we kind of know what our assets currently are in the city.
Is that audit, for lack of a better word, something that could be done in the fourth quarter, or is that something we need to be talking about first quarter of next year?
I would say let me reach out to see what other communities have done there. What's the most effective way of doing that? If you ask me, we have a lot going on in the fourth quarter with project bidding. I would ask you to push that to first quarter of next year if possible. But we could be making the phone calls now to find out what other cities are doing and coming up with a plan for that in the meantime.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm speaking on a simpler matter. Maybe it's not simple. I'm just saying like basic as we are upkeeping and trimming and doing things in the areas, and we see that a particular sidewalk is in crushed condition or it's dangerous. Are we doing the things to mark to say, you know what, we need to really look at this sidewalk here on Watts or Adams or whoever street? I just happen to drive by and see some of those that are really dangerous, and it's not even being, it's been like, it's just there. So I'm just saying, like, just maintenance things. And then as we see those things that are looking really bad and in bad shape, okay, this is definitely a sidewalk that we can see what we could do in-house, or maybe,
So one of the things we can do, as y'all call and you get complaints or comments, or you see them with your eyes, if you're calling me or the assistant public works director, we're tackling those as we see them, especially like grass growing up too much, or there's cracks that are fixed, or hey, we need to grind that down. We've done a lot of work. We've ground down a lot of sidewalks that had that big lip on them. You saw that. We did that. We brought in a contractor to do that. We've repaired some of that stuff in-house. We've actually sent our own staff to grind down some of those. We've done a contractor came in to replace slabs that are there. We've got the TAP grant that's finalizing design now to go forward. There's a grant for that program. But what we can do is we can start creating a database as you see those. We can keep that in engineering of where those areas are. But it's more of just what you're recommending is here are the things that we see, we won't get it done. What I'm kind of proposing is let's look at it as a whole, like we did as our roads, and find out exactly what are we up against.
That, but I'm just how my thought process was asking.
I think the short answer is no. We're not doing as good of a job as we could do inventorying when we find sidewalks that are not in good repair. But if we do find them, I know that they are reported. They're marked. I've been out with Shannon and his crew when we've done that. Somebody over by the library stumbles, maybe calls City Hall, says, hey, the sidewalk's uneven out here. I've been with Shannon and his team. They went out with the yellow paint, marked it as a known hazard, and then take action to remedy it, whether that's grinding it down or replacing the sidewalk. We had another sidewalk like that we just had reported and fixed as well downtown, but I think we can do a better job at it, and maybe empowering some of our people as they're out to know, hey, let us know, don't just skip over it. No different than if you see trash on the street, like, don't just leave it there. And I think we can get better at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a roadmap for how to get there. Basically what we do with the streets, you identify the problem, then you go out and put actual objective data to the problem. Then as long as the council is on board with resourcing the solution, in other words, writing the checks, putting it in the budget, the problem will improve. It'll improve. The conditions will improve if the resources are there. So, okay. PV Park, what's a good fourth quarter goal for PV Park?
So I'll let Glenn talk about where he's at on the design, but I think in the next 30 days that'll be ready to bid. But
Yeah, I brought Billy a review set today, and we went over some things he's still reviewing. Hopefully this month we'll be able to advertise. I'd say advertise an award in the fourth quarter would be probably a reasonable goal.
All right.
One thing, if you don't mind me adding about the comprehensive plan, what Sonia was talking about and what the comprehensive plan does is probably two ends of that spectrum. I know in that current comprehensive plan the city's operating off of, there is like a connectivity section in there that looks at it from a big view, like subdivisions, developments that need connecting for pedestrian bike. And some of that can be put into the comprehensive plan, I think, as part of that. And I think it will be.
Yeah. All right. This next to last item on the future considerations, since we have a few minutes, so this need to explore land bank and redevelopment applied to the hollowed out areas. This Economic Development Academy that Scotty, Greg, Mayor, myself, and Jonathan have attended this year. So I guess we've had about 4 or 5 meetings. That seems to be a recurring theme that keeps coming up of some successes other cities in the state have had with, and I said land bank and redevelopment. There's probably another dozen different things that of success stories around the state that I want to really start focusing on. Over the next 3 years. I'm not saying we need to do something in the fourth quarter. But there's just all sorts of things that are working out there that we're not doing. We've already started putting some pressure on it with what we did last meeting. Are we doing something? No, we're doing it tonight. The creating the board for unsafe buildings. So that's part of the plan. But there's a whole lot of other things out there that other cities are doing to start consolidating. Land banking is what they call it, of putting all these properties under one owner. It can be a private entity, it can be a public entity, or it can be a public-private partnership. But something that I really want to discuss more later. You have any comments on that, John?
Rainer, you did a little research for us. Do you want to?
We've got a few minutes if you.
I think it's one of those things that we really want to study before we rush into it.
Absolutely.
And we need to learn some more, particularly as to us taking title to these distressed properties.
Yeah,
So-
and I didn't necessarily say us. I just said,
Yeah.
some entity.
But having said that, any ideas for nuisance properties are welcomed. We continue to try and we'll plow any new ground we can to stop those properties. So I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah, and I by no way was advocating for a land bank or for a redevelopment authority. I'm just saying, I think there's other things out there that we need to be exploring. All right. Anything else from a fourth quarter? Go ahead.
Well, I
Scott.
got a question on the EV charging stations. Barry, I heard today the state has, I don't know how many millions of dollars producing EV stations all through the highways and stuff. I'm not sure if they're going down to cities, since we got 167, some of this other stuff. I'd just like for somebody to maybe take a look at that to see if it's just 231, those things, or since we're going that way, maybe there's some funds that can be available for those things from the state to put one or two in our city since they're doing a whole bunch of them around.
So we would be happy to investigate that. The program is set up through ADECA. The
Mhm.
first round, I know of that money went to predominantly communities that had interstate access. I believe the intent is to continue to trickle down into other areas. And I just want to note that when we looked and explored EV charging stations within the city, the reason that we haven't gone further is the entity that came here from Geneva, I think his name is Johnson, but it came in and spoke and made that presentation to the council, ended up linking up with a couple of private business owners in town. And so, we didn't need to get involved at that point, was where we're at. And they're trying to come up with a solution now. And I think they're still engaged on that, the last I've heard. So that may be done through the private sector without public involvement.
Yeah, I mean, I think our interest is that the EV stations are in the city, not necessarily that we own them.
Private
or that's on
entity
our
once
property.
takes it up, that's fine.
Just like a gas station. City doesn't have any gas stations. So
Super.
okay, everybody satisfied with those Q4 goals? I'll get those written up, distributed for y'all's review, and then we'll just stay on the staff to get those accomplished. So let's move on to our next item on our agenda, which is to review tonight's meeting agenda. Any changes from Friday, Beverly? So, all right, we'll have the consent agenda, which is some minutes, accounts payable A, contract billings for our financial audit, some poly invoices for some work at ADVA home, and the Boxwood Wildwood drainage improvements, KPS group for the comprehensive. That's for comprehensive plan, right? Yeah. So that's our comprehensive plan progress billing. Then we've got some travel requests from 911 board, Main Street, and police department, and some inventory disposal for the fire department. Any concerns or questions on the consent agenda? Pretty straightforward there. Mayor's got a special presentation. Then we've got a permit request. You good on the permit request? Okay. So that's Pinedale Elementary School Red Ribbon Parade. Then also the Spooky in the City, downtown Spooky. That is not a closure of Main Street. That's just West Scrubs, right? Yeah.
They closed one way to make it safer for traffic coming through. It's worked out quite well the last couple of years.
All right, then we'll move into old business. So we've got a Kirkland rezone, which is moving from an R100 to and there's some agricultural, moving all those to an R65. Any comments on that, Scotty or Thomas?
No real comments, just besides it was voted to y'all by the planning commission with a favorable vote to approve it. We've had a preliminary plat that came through last planning commission that actually got approved, so it's contingent upon this rezoning being approved. Does council have any questions about it?
If I remember right from the review, the part closest to College Street is already zoned residential. It was the back part that was agricultural, right?
Yes, sir.
So everything that's contiguous with residential now is already zoned residential.
Yes, sir.
We're just going to a slightly more dense residential.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you. Unsafe Building Board of Adjustment Appeals. If you remember, we introduced this last meeting with these members: Ron Reeves, Dallas Boyd, Sidney Gutcher, Clay Wilkes, and Brad Johnson. I know everybody's looking forward to getting that approved so we can continue the process of getting these buildings cleaned up. Then to new business, we're going to have a presentation from Missy Tyndall on the financial audit, and we've got a few planning commission recommendations. All we're doing is introducing these tonight, calling for, let's see, enterprise zone. We're going to amend table 4.1. Will you tell us about that, Thomas? So ordinance 100422 is going to amend table 4.1 of the enterprise zoning ordinance to add certain allowed uses in PBD, B3, M1, M2, and M3. So you're going to amend the use definitions.
Yes, sir. We're going to amend the use definitions in table 4.1 of the zoning ordinance to allow for the use of mini storage buildings, RV parks, major recreational sales and repair, and towing service in the PBD. And then we are adding the use definition of tow truck services to be used in PBD, B3, M1, M2, and M3 zoning. The reason why we are adding that use definition is we actually had a business come to us asking if they could move into the city. We had nowhere to put them because of our zoning table, so we went ahead and amended that. That way, if they decide to move into the city, or if another company that does the same type of work decides to move into the city, we'll have an area to actually put them. And the PBD, amending the PBD allows us to use the PBD in a more fluid way. And just to kind of reiterate what a PBD is, as a planned business district that allows us to set the buffer zones between residential, buffer zones between business. It allows us to know what they're building. It allows us to set the use that they're doing in there. We've had one that came before us for a mini storage unit that would set what they're doing in that area. It would be better than zoning it M1, or not M1, like a B1, them come in there, say they're going to do storage units, and then they end up, wanting to do a gas station, and they have rights to do that. We can't deny it. So that's the reason why we added those definitions to that PC.
PBD actually, where typically the council has no control over the end use of it, as long as it fits within the spectrum which we provide. Where a PBD, they actually have to come to us with a plan, right?
Yes, sir. They actually have to come to us with a plan, say what they're going to do, and then once they submit that plan to us and it is approved, they are locked in. They can't go. If they decide they want to do something different, then they have to go through the process again to get that approval.
Any questions on that? Now, did the planning commission approve that?
Yes, sir. They voted to.
So that went through the same process that
yes, sir.
did all this other stuff. So there's going to be a public hearing on that. We're not voting on that tonight. Then we've got the Howell rezone, which we're just introducing tonight. Then we've got correct zoning boundary line at 101 Hillcrest Loop.
Yes, sir.
So what's going on there?
So there was a citizen who brought us that parcel at 101 Hillcrest Loop. They were trying to sell their house. The loan company was refusing to process the loan because of the zoning. Somehow, in one of our adaptations of the zoning map, it got zoned MD, which is a medical district, even though it has never been used as a business. It has never been asked to be rezoned to a business standard. So what we're wanting to do is correct that zoning with the zoning that it should be, which is R75S, which is the rest of that neighborhood in that area. So that allows the person to sell their home.
So this was a mistake, and that mistake is holding up the sale of the home.
Yes, sir.
So I assume the request is that we suspend the rules and pass this tonight.
Yes, sir.
Is anybody opposed to that? It sounds like and nobody's come forward to complain about it.
No, sir. There's no complaints about it.
Okay. All right. Review and consider resolution 100422, which is Arrowhead subdivision. This is just accepting the maintenance of those streets.
Yes, sir.
Then, all right, that's all we needed from you, Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any questions on that last item for Thomas? Okay. Next item we've got is the Chamber of Commerce contract. Jonathan, is anybody going to brief us on that? This is the same contract as last year.
It is. So if you recall during the budget meetings, Chamber of Commerce, Wiregrass EDC, and anybody basically that we appropriated a substantial amount of money to came and briefed you kind of what they did with the money last year, what their plans are for next year. Chamber of Commerce did that. I'm not sure if a representative from the chamber will be here tonight. The mayor and I met with Jesse Quillen from Wiregrass EDC earlier. He was with a prospect. And was concerned if he needed to be here. I did tell him that I thought that we could speak on his behalf since he was with a prospect that's looking at our community. So I told him to please stay with the prospect, and then we would just answer any questions you had about the contract.
So both of these are consistent with what we did last year and with what we discussed in the budget hearings.
They are. The only change on the sum for Wiregrass EDC is the 110 went up from 100. They had, if you remember, they requested 115,000 for additional computers and things that they needed to replace. And what I heard the council say is, you have other stakeholders in the organization. We can help you out with some of it, but not all of it. And so that's the amount that was agreed on.
And both of these amounts are in our budget that we passed last.
They are. Yes, sir.
All right. The next item is the Workforce Project Development Agreement. Do we want to discuss this now or in regular meeting?
However you'd like to do it. We have members from the college here, so we could discuss that, and you can interact with them maybe in a better setting here. If you wanted to ask them,
I guess I'll ask y'all, Danny. So we can do this. We can talk about it now. In our work, this is our work session. A little less formal. We can talk about it now. If y'all want to be in the official meeting, you're more than welcome to do it then. Yeah. So
you want to talk now? We can talk now.
It's easier to talk now. But again, if y'all want to stick around, you can. But I mean, this is consistent with everything we talked about for several months now. Has anybody have any questions? I mean, it pretty much. I know there was some back and forth between, of course, the attorneys, but I think both of our needs are met here, right?
Yes, sir.
We were talking earlier before y'all got here that one of council's big goals before this conversation ever began was somehow figure out a plan for workforce development. So it's really a blessing that y'all were having the same conversations at the same time, and so it certainly made the conversations go quicker. And so why don't you, just for the benefit of everybody in the room and anybody listening online, give us a little idea of what y'all are planning out there.
Yes, sir. So let me turn this has been a conversation that's been going on for almost a year now, and just want to thank the council, the mayor, Jonathan, Rayner for his work on the agreement. But essentially, this is going to be roughly a 20,000 square foot workforce center designed to meet business and industry needs in our local community. We have engaged in an architect already. We have started meeting with, we had our first meeting with the automotive industry last week to start looking at curriculum. On our side, when we look at designing a degree plan, there's some levels of bureaucracy that we have to go through. So we want to make sure that with our accreditors that we're ready to go when these doors are open. My expectation is for this project to be bid out in the spring, and for the construction of this building to be done before fall of 24. Essentially we've discussed previously some of the programs that are going to go in this building. We're taking a group up to Lawson Community College on Friday to just look at some of their facilities and really start digging into the design phase. Once our agreement is signed, then we'll kick into high gear, and just really excited about the impact that this can have, on the college, on our community. And, I hope 10, 20 years from now, somebody's going to look back on this decision and say, wow, those guys were really forward thinkers, and this decision was all what we thought it would be. So just excited, and certainly grateful that you guys have the confidence in the college and the leadership of the college to move this project forward.
Yeah. Well, certainly appreciate the partnership. And just to kind of summarize what our resolution is tonight, make sure we're all on the same page. The college is going to build a approximate 20,000 square foot building dedicated to workforce development, specifically, not necessarily limited to, but including specifically developing and maintaining programs within the new building to train and equip skilled workers in areas including but not limited to advanced manufacturing, composites, aerospace, nursing, welding, and automotive technicians. And then the city's commitment is $500,000 a year over 20 years towards the project. And then, in addition, the college they're going to build the project. So, it's not a city project. It's going to be a college project. They're going to build the project. Then they're committing also not just to build a building, but actually equip it, operate it, budget for, and staff the facility during the 20-year period. So, I think both sides are adequately protected in the agreement.
Yes, sir.
I think I'm excited about it. So, does anybody have any questions for Danny or his team?
I'd sure like to see plumber and electrician listed in there.
Yes, sir. Well, and that's, and we will have a space that is flexible. Not everything that we're going to do requires a degree plan. So there will be space that will be committed to, whether it's a 6-month training, a 12-month training, get people in, get people out, get them the skills necessary to become an apprentice and enter that workforce as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think we all agree that construction sciences are going to be definitely a need in our community.
Any consideration for, say, specific boot camps for things where you want to? I know you said get them out quickly, but sometimes I've seen boot camps at some of the colleges to where they go in, may take a 6-month course and cram it into 3 to 4 week, 8-hour a day classes. So.
Yeah, and there's a project that is ongoing through the community college system, Skills for Success. And so we was actually on a meeting this morning that was addressing heavy equipment operators, some of those construction science skills, CDL drivers, Class B, pavers. It's designed to 4 or 5 weeks. Part of the issue is that those things all require space, and so we've been not been able to take advantage of some of those things because we just don't have a space to get dirty in, and so this will meet some of that need. Obviously, just some of these things are tough to teach in a classroom that was designed for social studies and math. Right. So, even some of the projects that I worked on at the high school, when you get in, you design a space for a specific purpose, even as new as that building was, when you have to modify a space, it's awfully expensive. So, some of this will just be designed with power and air, just so mobile equipment. A lot of these things are being taught with simulators now. So, get them in and get them out.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Well, like I said, feel free to stick around, but no necessary need to. It sounds like we've got full support for it. So
yes, sir.
That's entirely up to y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. The next item on here, Tammy, you want to, or I'm sorry, Miss Montgomery, I think. Yeah, Mariah, you're gonna. Can you update us on this form license agreement for the Main Street Enterprise logo?
So we have the Downtown Enterprise logo that was provided to us through Main Street, Alabama, but it is a city logo. And I've got some downtown businesses that want to use it. They want to print it and put it on coasters or on postcards, things that they anticipate selling during holiday season. And this was just kind of an action to make sure that we still have control. That way nobody's using it in a negative way. We still have the ability to be a part of that.
Yep. So if somebody put on something we didn't approve of, we've got actual recourse to stop that.
Yep, they would have to remove it within 7 days.
Yep. All right. Any questions of Mariah? All right. Thank you. All right. And that's all we've got on the agenda. Is everybody satisfied with the agenda? Any additions, deletions? All right. We'll move on to back to our work session agenda. We've got a request from Mr. Cotter and Mr. Tullos for an executive session regarding economic development and good name and character. Anything addition? Those two items? I think it'll take about 30 minutes. All right. So I will entertain a motion to go in executive session regarding economic development and good name and character.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, I expect we'll be gone for about 30 minutes, returning around 5:45. We currently do not have any other items to discuss in work session, so we'll probably have a brief recess before we go into our 6 o'clock meeting.
Go ahead, son.
I'm dragging around.
Really?
Tonight's or after this? And then he's letting us go in a little early. I'm getting the crew. I offered Spirit is letting us go and get on that stage. But I didn't have a second. I actually had some fear advantage back. I'm using really super Spanish. I've got a couple of managers. Just to make sure I don't embarrass myself. And then, you know, the younger ones are just gonna have fun. But Chris Long is gonna be able to read it to Fawn. Yes. He is the music. To be honest with you, I'm like, I want to wear those like, when I heard it was 80s, I'm like, I can get my coffee. Literally, I'm not. We went to the presentation. By the way, right now, he's like, you only have so many breaks, you had to talk. I could have scrolled off to the right. So I was trying to get all around the games. Got UFC this time, watched the Eagles, until after a while. It was not my week. Jaguar. In the Jaguars. Their pastor right here. Right here with them. No, he married them. He married them. Yes, the kids are in Fort Myers. The rest of my family is in Jacksonville. They're at 17 miles. But they actually she was supposed to be at Fort Bragg, Fort State, and then out. But obviously, unfortunately, she didn't travel back. Said, some people couldn't travel. They were actually showed up. Well, they're building this they just went straight to work. Super sweet. It's funny, I was putting on my wheelbrush. We'll make it hard to make it, you know. She's very It wasn't a billboard. It wasn't an ad. It wasn't a billboard. Okay. I need really nice talk about this one. You need to get out of that. That needs to stop. You're the one. How long they're on. You can hear it all day long. You did ask me a couple times. There's a lot that I'll ask. I'm messing with the church. They're the ones I go to. I'm like, did I need a mural? You're the big festival over here. Yeah. But they're all good. Yeah.
Good. Sure are more on the low one.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. If you could please stand with me for our opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. We have Dr. Michael Minat from Hillcrest Baptist Church.
Let's pray together. God, we come in the name of Jesus, just so grateful for who you are. And God, again, is just coming to this time tonight where there's business to be handled. We want to handle it correctly. And God, we know that you're the one who gives wisdom and guidance. God, I'm so thankful for our council, for our mayor, and God, for our city leadership. God, we just ask that you would continue to give them the understanding that they need on decisions. And Lord, I thank you for even the testimonies tonight that we've been able to share before this meeting of people that have been impacted by this city. And Lord, we want to continue to be a place, God, where people know they can call it home and be welcomed. And Lord, of course, that they know that we worship God. Lord, we praise you. We thank you for this night. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, Council, you have the agenda in your packets in front of you as discussed in the prior work session. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the city council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the city council. I'll now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now have a special presentation by the mayor he's going to present a certificate of appreciation to Jeremy Mitchell in recognition of his contribution and service to the city of Enterprise as city prosecutor.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we would like to recognize one person who has worked in our court system for 2.5 years, and he has moved on to highly better things. But this reads, today we recognize Jeremy Mitchell for approximately 2.5 years. Jeremy served as city prosecutor in our municipal court system. Jeremy is an excellent, dedicated public servant. He was responsible in both the needs of victims and the Enterprise Police Department. He did what he needed to do to keep repeat offenders off the street. We're glad to know that he is at the district attorney's office where he can continue to help the citizens of Coffee County. Jeremy, we hate to see you go, but we are excited for this next step in your career, working with the district attorney's office in Coffee County. Congratulations on your promotion.
It says in recognition and gratitude for your outstanding contributions to the city of Enterprise and to our municipal court. Thank you for your service. Yes, sir.
I've been thinking about this as I've been going along, and I've got to start by thanking everyone in the leadership. Mayor, City Attorney Randy Cotter, this great city council does so much for our city. City Administrator John Tellis, we've been working close together on things here lately. I know you weren't there in the beginning, but definitely appreciate what you've done for me as this has gone. My magistrates keep me in line. I don't know if I could think before that, like doing all that. Judge Sherman keeping me in line. Also leading me through processes sometimes. It wasn't easy just to come in and take over a role I'd never done before, but I appreciate everyone's help doing that. I can't thank you enough for trusting me to be city prosecutor, and it's been an honor and a privilege. I look forward to doing it. I'm really honestly going to miss this job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. All right, we'll now consider a permit request for Pinedale Elementary School and the Red Ribbon Parade. I'll introduce a request on behalf of Lori Cox, Pinedale Elementary School, to obtain a permit to hold the school's annual Say No to Violence and Be Drug Free Red Ribbon Parade on Friday, October 28, 2022, from 1:30 p.m. until 2:30 p.m. Parade participants will line up on Sequoia Street. All participants will enter the school driveway from Sequoia Street, Shady Lane, and Sequoia Street, Plaza Drive, and exit from the school driveway onto Plaza Drive. Is anyone here representing the applicant? All right, seeing no one. We already got the blessing from Chief Moore in the work session, so I'll entertain a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We now have a request to address the council on permit requests for Spooky in the City, downtown Spooky Stop. So, Ms. Mariah Montgomery is going to come forward. She has requested to address the council to obtain permission to have Railroad Street blocked off as a one-way street and partial closure of West Grub Street on Friday, October 28th as part of the Spooky in the City event.
Yes, so Enterprise Parks and Rec is putting on the Spooky in the City event. They have allowed us to be a stop. So all we're asking is to turn that into a one-way, as well as Grubs, to just make it easier for those cars to line up so that we don't back up traffic on Main Street.
All right. Is there any questions for Ms. Montgomery? All right. Chief Moore gave us the blessing earlier, so I'll entertain a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we're now to the part of the meeting called Privilege of the Floor. This allows anyone that's present here tonight to address the council for 3 minutes on any issues that will not be discussed in the public hearing, which we have one public hearing for the Kirkland rezone. So if you're here to talk about that, please hold that for the public hearing. But if you're here for anything else, now would be the time. Is there anyone here to address this? Seeing no one, we'll move on to staff reports. Any members of the staff that were unable to address us in the work session? Chief Moore?
Actually, I chose to talk during this time because it's kind of things going on. I want the public to know about it as well. First of all, we've changed our patch. If you'll notice, it's for breast cancer awareness for this month. Officers will be wearing them. They had to buy into it, which means they had to purchase a patch. They're open to the public. Anybody who cares to purchase a patch, they're $10 a piece. The amount that we were going to make off of it was very small because we didn't think that we're going to buy a whole lot of patches, but they're going like hotcakes. So, however, that money that we have raised from it is going back to the community. We want to give, like I said, anything that I do with the community funds, I want to go back to our community, the city of Enterprise. I.e., we bought into the fire department's fire alarm thing. We donated to that as well. I want everything to go back here, so therefore I couldn't find anybody the breast cancer awareness right now. So we're going to put it back in the community fund to do things for like kicking it with cops and coffee with cops and a bunch of different other events. That's where the money's going to. It's going back into the community. The second thing is my office is selling raffle tickets. One of your employees is battling breast cancer herself. And she's at the point where she needs extra funds. She's a phenomenal employee, never asked for much, just a great dispatcher. And we are, in my department, is personally a personal thing, not carried by the city of Enterprise or the police department, just people that work with her, a family, are donating our time and money to support her. With that, we're being raffle tickets. We're raffling a $250 gift card and a cooler, which was donated to the police department, again, by a private donor. And we're going to raffle those off at $10 a ticket. All the proceeds are going to the dispatcher who's battling breast cancer right now. So to help her pay for her bills and stuff that she cannot do right now. So just wanted to pass it on to y'all, staff, and that's it.
Where can someone buy the tickets?
Tickets can be purchased through my office, the chief of police office. I also take Venmo, if anybody wants to Venmo me. If it's on Facebook, with my Venmo address and everything else. But do a raffle ticket. The raffle will be October 12th for 2 prizes. So, all right.
I have a 20 when you're ready.
I'll get you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Any other staff reports? Barry?
Council, we talked about this in work session a little bit, but on Thursday this week, we'll be starting the first phase of the Phase 3A paving. And I think this is going out on our webpage, but I just want to let everybody know that the streets they will be tackling first, this will be through 10-6 through 10-14. This is from the contractor. This is subject to change and subject to weather, but let everybody know that Windsor Trace, Wentworth Drive, West Sand Street, Road, West Kingsford Drive, Willingston Drive, West Point Court, East Point Court, North Point Boulevard, North Point Parkway, and Baker Street, Taylor Street intersection. And those are the first batch of streets that the contractor has given us that he will start on our Phase 3A street repaving project. Just for the people online and people here, be cognizant we got workers in the street. Please be patient. Protect the guys that are trying to do the work. One thing that we are working with the contractor in this phase is to do cleanup as we go. So we've had that discussion in the pre-con. So I know some of the public had some issues with them leaving millings, that kind of stuff in their yard for a long period of time. We've had a discussion with the contractor and should not have that issue in this next Phase 3A project. So I just want to keep you informed on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other staff reports? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to old business. So we're going to have a public hearing and consideration of ordinance 090622, which is the Kirkland rezone. I'm going to call for a public hearing prior to consideration of ordinance 090622, providing for the rezone of 72 acres of land owned by Catherine Kirkland from R100 Residential District and AGRIC2 Agricultural District to R65 Residential District, located at 1607 West College Street. So our public hearing is now open. What we'll do, if the developer so wishes, have a chance to introduce the project with and go ahead and address any of the known concerns that we may hear about later. So are y'all going to, do y'all want to address this? Okay. All right. Is there anyone here that's present here that is opposed to this rezone? All right. Seeing none, do we have a staff report regarding the rezone?
Council, we spoke previously on this in the work session. The Planning Commission did vote to approve this rezone. When staff was doing the review of this potential rezone, we found no reason that this rezone should not be approved. So staff recommends approval of this rezone.
All right, thank you. All right, we will now close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 090622.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll now review and consider ordinance 092022, which is Unsafe Building Board of Adjustment and Appeals. I'll now call for consideration of ordinance 092022, providing to establish the Unsafe Building Board of Adjustment and Appeals and appoint its board members as follows. Seat 1, Ron Reeves for a 1-year term. Seat 2, Dallas Boyd for a 1-year term. Seat 3, Sidney Gucher for a 2-year term. Seat 4, Clay Wilkes for a 2-year term. And Seat 5, Brad Johnson for a 3-year term. I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 092022.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to new business. We have the presentation of the FY 2021 financial audit. I'll recognize Misty Tyndall, representing firm Brunson Wilkerson Bowden and Associates PC, who will present the fiscal year 2021 audit. Council, we've got copies here.
Thank you. Council and Mayor, I want to start by thanking you on behalf of our firm, Brunson Wilkerson Bowden and Associates, for allowing us to provide audit services for the city for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2021. As Councilman Townsend said, you should have a small red binder. I don't know if you had your copy of the large financial statements or if you've already received them previously. I know they were issued a couple of weeks back. I'm going to use the small presentation to go through the book today. We don't have time to go through the whole financial statement, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. So on one side of the folder, you have our required communications. There's a management letter and also an end of audit conclusion letter to governance. So those are just two required communications that I would like for you to review. I wanted to make sure that you also had a copy of those. So I'm not really going to say much more about those if you would just read them in your own time. And now I'll go through the presentation. First of all, if you want to turn to page 1 in the presentation, there's a table of contents, and after the cover page. First of all, I wanted to point out that we did issue an unmodified opinion. Not our opinion. We do refer in our opinion to the opinion of the Enterprise Waterworks Board auditors. We did not audit that component unit, so our opinion, as far as it's related to the Enterprise Waterworks Board, is based on those auditors' reports. They also issue an unmodified opinion on that component unit. So overall, the city did receive an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2021. An unmodified opinion is the highest level of opinion that I can issue. That means we found nothing that required us to modify our opinion. So our opinion read that we did feel that the financial statements presented fairly the financial results of the city for that fiscal year. In your financial statements, you'll find the independent auditor's report, and in your presentation, I've referenced the pages in your large financial statement pack or financial statement booklet that these items are located on. So if you want to cross-reference those later in your spare time, you can do so. The financial statements begin with the independent auditor's report. Again, you did get an unmodified opinion. It then goes to the management's discussion and analysis. That's on pages 5 through 20. That is written by management and is just a discussion and analysis of the financial statements for the fiscal year. The financial statements contain government-wide financial statements and also fund financial statements. Your government-wide financial statements are the first two statements you'll find in the financial statements. Those are reported on the accrual basis, and they're similar to what you would find in the business sector. The fund financial statements follow the government-wide financial statements. There are two reconciliations from the fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements in the book, and that just shows the difference between the fund financial statements and the government-wide financial statements. The fund financial statements are on the modified accrual basis of accounting. The differences are mainly fixed assets or capital assets are reported as assets and depreciated. On the government-wide financial statements, they're reported as expenditures in the fund financial statements. And then also debt is not recorded as a liability in the fund financial statements, but it is on the government-wide financial statements. Tonight, I'm going to focus on the government-wide financial statements. At the end of the fiscal year, the city had total assets and deferred outflows of resources of approximately $211.2 million. The governmental activities, which are everything but the water and sewer, showed assets and deferred outflows of resources of approximately $158.9 million. The business type activities, which are the Water Works Board and the Sewer Fund, had assets of approximately $52.3 million. And I'm rounding these just for time's sake. Total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources at the end of the fiscal year were approximately $201.2 million. Of that, the governmental activities made up approximately $159.9 million, and the business type activities made up approximately $41.2 million. That left your total net position at 9/30/21 a positive approximately $10 million. Now, there was an increase from the prior year of approximately $14 million in net position. Last year, you ended the year with a negative net position of approximately $3.9 million. So this year, we saw a positive change in net position of approximately $14 million. Your net position of the governmental activities at the end of the fiscal year was a deficit of $1 million, but the business type activities had a net position of approximately $11.1 million. Over the prior fiscal year, the governmental activities saw an increase in net position of approximately $15.2 million, with the business type activities showed a decrease of approximately $1.2 million, but that decrease includes transfers out of approximately $2.3 million, which was related to a bond issue we'll talk about in a minute. Those are just some highlights of some major numbers. I'm going to go through the presentation a little deeper now. I told you on the governmental activities side, you had approximately $158.9 million at the end of the fiscal year in assets and deferred outflows of resources. Of that number, your unrestricted cash and cash equivalents in your governmental activities, and again, that is everything but waterworks, board, and sewer, was approximately $17.2 million. You also had current restricted cash of approximately $73 million. Most of that cash came from the bond issuances you did during the year, and it's held in restricted funds for future capital improvements. And you also had capital assets of the governmental activities of approximately $53.7 million. On the liabilities side of the governmental activities, you had your OPEB, your other post-employment benefit obligation, was approximately $16.7 million, and that's your health insurance plan. Your net pension liability, which is your retirement plan, on the governmental side, was approximately $8.6 million at the end of the fiscal year, and your long-term liabilities were approximately $124.1 million on the governmental activities side. On the business type side, for the assets, you had unrestricted cash and cash equivalents of approximately $1.3 million. You had current restricted cash of approximately $3.7 million. And you had capital assets of approximately $43.6 million. The liability side on the business type activities, the major liabilities were your other post-employment benefit obligation, again, your health insurance plan, approximately $1.8 million, your net pension liability of approximately $1.1 million, and long-term liabilities, including your current portion of approximately $36.4 million. Again, change in that position over the prior fiscal year of a positive $14.1 million. To make up that change in that position, the governmental activities showed revenues of approximately $50.4 million. That amount includes the offset of the transfer that I told you about in the business type activities of $2.3 million. The governmental activities had expenses of approximately $35.2 million. The business type activities showed revenue of approximately $9.8 million and expenses of approximately $10.9 million. Again, in that expense number is the transfer of $2.3 million between funds. The revenues on the governmental activities, the largest increases there came from your grants and contributions. They were up around $4.2 million from the prior year. You did receive 2 COVID grants during the year that account for the majority of that increase. Your sales tax was up approximately $3.6 million over the prior year, and your lodging tax saw an increase of about $157,000. On a presentation, I've highlighted a couple of the revenues there that are the largest revenues for the city. On the expense side, I've also shown you some selected expenses there. Really, on the expense side, you did not have a large increase in expenses over the prior year. For fiscal year ended September 30, 2021, your expenses were $35.2 million. When we compare that to the prior year, it was right at $34 million. So you didn't see a large increase in expenses over the prior year. On the business type activities side, major revenues, of course, on the business type activities for the waterworks and the sewer fund, both are your operating revenues. That's your water sewer fees charged to customers. Your expenses include your operating expenses and then your non-operating expenses, which are mostly interest. And then also you have, I've shown you the operating transfers out to other funds. Just a recap on your summary. On page 4 of the summary, the proprietary funds, which proprietary funds equal the business type activities. They're also the water and sewer and the waterworks board and the sewer fund. There is a statement of cash flows for the proprietary funds on pages 30 and 31 of your large financial statement. The proprietary funds are the only funds that you see a cash flow statement there. I did want to point out the fiduciary fund financial statements in your financial statement booklet are pages 32 and 33. That's the municipal court. There was a change in accounting principle from the prior year, GASB 84, which required us to add a new statement. So that's something that's new in the financial statement from the prior year. I've highlighted a couple of notes that I thought were of utmost importance to you that you want to look at. Also, I've highlighted that next in the financial is required supplementary information. That's where we report budget to actual comparisons, schedule of changes in pension and OPEB liability. And then we have next in the financial statement is a supplementary schedule of expenditures of federal awards. Total of federal expenditures by the city for fiscal year ended September 30th, 2021 were $1,695,085. That consisted of a coronavirus relief fund in the amount of approximately $1.4 million, a CDBG demolition grant, an assistant to firefighters grant, and also the city also received approximately $3.4 million in fiscal recovery funds. That amount was not spent during the fiscal year and is accounted as restricted cash. It will be reported as federal expenditures as it's spent. And you have until December 31st, 26 to spend that money. The next thing in your financial statement book is the schedule of findings and question cost, and then the summary schedule of prior audit findings. That schedule, you will see that 3 of the prior year findings were remediated during the fiscal year ended September 30th, 21. Next in the financial statement is our corrective action plan, or your corrective action plan. The combining financial statements. And then we do have 2 separate reports. One report is on internal control and compliance required by the governmental auditing standards. That's on pages 142 and 143 of your report. I ask that you do review that report. We did have some findings. There were 4 findings in that report, so I do ask that you review that. We've discussed that with management, and they're already taking steps to alleviate those findings. We also have a report on compliance for each major program and internal control. That's required by the Uniform Guidance, which is the guidance over your federal expenditures. We had no findings related to federal expenditures. Also in your packet, I've given you some pie charts showing the revenues by type for the governmental activities. These are largely unchanged as far as the percentage. Your largest revenue is sales tax, of course, followed by charges for services. Now, capital grants and contributions did increase in percentage from the prior year, but everything else basically stayed the same in relation to the total. Your next pie chart is your expenses by activity. Again, as in prior years, the largest amount of expense is for public safety, followed by payments to the city school, highways and streets, and so forth. The next chart is the revenues by type for the business type activities. And I give you these charts because sometimes numbers can get lost in your head, but sometimes it means a little more looking at a chart. As expected, the revenues by type of the business type activities, the majority comes from the charges for services. And then you'll see the business type activities, the expenses by activity is the last page in your presentation. I did want to cover that during the year you added capital assets to include equipment, vehicles, an antenna tower, and you adopted city streets. Projects in process during the prior year, during 2020, that were added to your fixed assets or were placed into service were the airport beacon project, the airport terminal, and the airport ramp. Projects in progress at the end of the year, still in progress, were some projects on College Street, sidewalk project, resurfacing, the Shellfield Highway 27 roundabout, the airport runway extension, and the downtown parking lot. During the year, there were several bond issues. You issued approximately $92.7 million in debt on the governmental activity side. That debt refunded approximately $34.5 million in old bonds. And you also paid down $3.32 million in debt during that fiscal year. On the business type activity side, you issued approximately $18.57 million in bonds, which refunded approximately $16.7 million in old bonds, and you paid down approximately $980,000 in debt during the fiscal year. Overall, we issued an unmodified opinion. I know that was a lot of talk, a lot of numbers. We did issue an unmodified opinion. You saw a positive change in that position of $14 million during the fiscal year. Overall, a good fiscal year for the city. I would like to thank CFO Treasurer Leanne Swartz and her office for their help during the audit. We require a lot of information, and they're always helpful. Her office and also all department heads and employees of the city were always accommodating and helpful to us. So I would like to thank them. Again, thank you for allowing us to continue or to provide services for the city. I will take any questions at this time, or you have my card in the front of your folder. If you have questions at a later date, do not ever hesitate to call me.
All right. Does anybody have any questions tonight? All right. I would encourage y'all to review these. Thank you for the notes. Make it easy to flip through there. But appreciate your time and the report, and appreciate Leanne and her office too for all the work that went into this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rainer, don't we typically accept the audit? So we'll do it the next. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll have that at the next meeting. All right. So I will. I'm going to introduce for the record a recommendation for the Enterprise Planning Commission to approve the following request. A request by the City of Enterprise to amend zoning ordinance amending table 4-1 to add certain allowed uses and to amend use definitions. A request by Brent Howell for the rezoning of 18.757 acres of land from AGRIC 2 Agricultural District to PBD Planned Business District located off of Sheffield Road. A request by the City of Enterprise Engineering Department to amend the zoning map to correct a zoning error from MD to R75S located at 101 Hillcrest Loop. There'll be no action taken on those tonight. I'll now introduce Ordinance 100422. I introduce Ordinance 100422 providing to amend Table 4-1 of the Enterprise Zoning Ordinances to add certain allowed uses in Planned Business District PBD, Highway Commercial District B3, Light Industry District M1, and Industrial Park District M2, and General Industry District M3, and to amend use definitions. I call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for November 1st, 2022. I'll now introduce Ordinance 100422-A, the Howell rezone. I introduce Ordinance 100422-A providing for the rezone of 18.757 acres of land owned by Brent Howell from AGRIC 2 Agricultural District to PBD Planned Business District located off of Sheffield Road. Call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for November 1st, 2022. I will now introduce Ordinance 100422-B to correct the zoning boundary line 101 Hillcrest Loop. I introduce Ordinance 100422-B relating to a request from Assistant Director of Engineering Services Thomas Hardy to amend the zoning district boundary line to correct the zoning district located at 101 Hillcrest Loop. It appears the official zoning map inadvertently shows said property within an MD district when it should be wholly within an R75S district. The recommendation is made by the Enterprise Planning Commission to approve the request. So for us to address this tonight, we're going to need to suspend the rules prior to consideration. So I will entertain a request to suspend our rules.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules so we can immediately address this ordinance. Is there any discussion regarding suspension of the rules? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries and the rules are suspended. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt Ordinance 100422-B.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now review and consider Resolution 100422, which is the Arrowhead Subdivision Phase 3 and 4. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 100422, providing to accept for maintenance the streets and other public easements and improvements which are expressly shown on the final plat of Arrowhead Phase 3 and Phase 4 subdivision as public dedications, subject to the contingencies and matters as set out in the September 28, 2022 letter from Barry Mott to the council. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 100422.
So moved.
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now review and consider Resolution 100422A, which is the FY 2023 Chamber of Commerce contract. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 100422A, providing for the renewal of the annual contract with Enterprise Chamber of Commerce in the sum of $81,500 for general funding, tourism, and assistance and hospitality functions to be paid in quarterly payments. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 100422A.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now review and consider Resolution 100422B regarding the FY 2023 WEDC contract. Introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 100422B, providing for the renewal of the annual contract with Wiregrass Economic Development Corporation in the sum of $110,000 to be paid in quarterly payments of $27,500. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 100422B.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now review and consider Resolution 100422C regarding the Workforce Project Development Agreement. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 100422C, authorizing the mayor to execute a project development and funding agreement between the city, Alabama Community College System, and Enterprise State Community College. The project relates to the Alabama Community College System and college's commitment to build an approximate 20,000 square foot building on the college's Enterprise campus dedicated to workforce development, including specifically developing and maintaining programs within the new building to train and equip skilled workers in areas including but not limited to such as advanced manufacturing, composites, aerospace, nursing, welding, and automotive technicians. Under the agreement, the city is committing $500,000 per year over 20 years towards the project, with requirements that the college system and college build the project and equip, operate, budget for, and staff the facility during the 20-year period of the agreement. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 100422C.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a request to approve the form license agreement for Main Street Enterprise logo. I'll introduce and call for consideration of a request from Main Street Director Mariah Montgomery for the approval of a form license agreement whereby city merchants could use the Main Street Enterprise logo pursuant to the terms and conditions of the license agreement. Further request is made to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement from time to time as he determines is proper. I'll entertain a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor, you have a report for us?
Thank you, President. First of all, I would like to take a moment for honor the passing of former Councilmember Richard Fleming, who died last week at the age of 94. He served on the council from 1972 to 1988. He also served as the Fire and Police Commissioner. Richard was a champion for Enterprise. He was a permanent citizen, but also a family man who we dearly miss. Let's have a moment of silence in honor of Richard Fleming. thank you. As you know, Hurricane I moved through Florida last week before it continued through the Carolinas. Here in Enterprise, we still have factories staying in hotels or with families or with friends. I want to thank everyone, especially our business partners, for showing those people of true hospitality. The City of Enterprise knows what it's like when disaster strikes the community. We will be forever thankful for those that helped us in time of need. Now is the time for us to help others. Of course, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Our police and fire departments show their support this month through special initiatives. Fire Prevention Week is October 8th through the 14th. The department will be visiting schools and sharing resources with the community throughout the entire month. Next Monday, October 10th, Columbus Day, city offices will be closed. Garbage pickups will shift because of the holiday. Monday's garbage will be picked up on Tuesday. Tuesday's garbage will be picked up on Wednesday. There are several festival and fall activities coming up in the City of Enterprise. The next one is the Bo Weaver Fall Festival, and it will be held downtown on October 15th. It's a free family fun event. A reminder that trick-or-treat hours was set by the council a few meetings ago. The time that will be celebrated will be 5:30, 8:30 p.m. on the 31st of October. If you haven't heard, the Little Red Schoolhouse is now downtown. It was a true community effort. I want to say thank you to the Bee River Historical Society, Main Street Program, Tourism, Community Service, Public Works, Police, Fire, and Engineering Department. And finally, if you're on social media, check out the City of Enterprise Facebook page for updated information about what's happening in the city. You can also look for articles on our city website. And I would also like to thank the council and passing of the work that we are trying to do with the economic development with the junior college over there in the midst of late Matt Rogers, who really kind of put us together, and then of course Danny taking up the wheels and moving along with them, and how we are working closely, not only with the junior college, but from the Enterprise School System K through 12 and through the college system, which has been one of the best here lately. So again, we are moving forward, and this is part of our city of progress. I also received a letter from some people that had a chance to see the CBS report on the Bo Weaver Monument, and so I was going to ask Sonia if she would read that letter that was sent to me from a family in Hiram, Georgia.
It is dated September 28th of this year. Dear Mayor Cooper, I wanted to personally thank you for being so gracious when my husband and I visited your beautiful city on September 27th, and for taking time out of your day to greet us and present us with the beautiful challenge coins, which we will cherish. I just can't say thank you enough to Kara for going the extra mile, and please thank her for us because she is such a sweetie. Learning of the history of the coins surfacing during World War II was especially meaningful to me because my father served in the Air Transport Command, 8th Air Force, from 1943 to 1945. He served as a radio man on B-17 bombers in the American, European, and South Pacific theaters, and his crew was responsible for secretly bringing over the trigger mechanism for the A-bomb, which ended the war. He was even personally invited to be on the USS Missouri for the signing of the surrender of the Japanese. He received many medals during his wartime service, but I have not found a challenge coin among them as of yet. Your message of diversity and helping a community to thrive is inspirational, and I wish more elected representatives would follow the example you have set. Your kindness and generosity is a rare thing indeed, in much of today's society, and we greatly appreciate it. Living in a small but diverse city ourselves with a population of just over 4,000, we get that same feeling here at home. Visiting Enterprise was our first trip out of town in 2.5 years because of COVID, and I'm glad we picked your destination. Best wishes to you, your family, and your staff. Most sincerely, signed Wendy B. Lubbers and Mark Howard.
Sonia, you have any additional comments?
I just want to congratulations, Danny, I guess, to all of us and what we accomplished tonight with our workforce development. It's good to have partners like ESCC that we can sit at the table together and share concerns and interests and formulate plans for our citizens. So very excited about that. And I wanted to congratulate Mr. Mitchell for his position with the District Attorney's Office as well. Just thank everybody for coming. I feel like I'm sitting on top of the world tonight. And it's not really just because I have anything special going on in my life, but just because of these new chairs. That we're sitting a little higher, looking at you from a little, another level. So I want to thank everybody that went the extra mile. We need to give another extra mile, Mr. Cooper, for these chairs. I appreciate that. And I thank you, Miss Leanne and your staff and Jonathan for everything you've done for our, in this budget season with our audit and whatnot. Thank you all for coming.
Mr. Goolsby?
Well, I'm glad to see that we had a good report on our audit, and thank you for all of our staff who worked so diligently on that. It's always nice to have a letter of somebody appreciating our city instead of a complaint. During our work session, we went through all of our goals that we had set for our vision of our third quarter, and I was glad to see that most of them are complete or are in the works. So I think things are moving nicely, and thank everybody for coming tonight.
Mr. Padgett?
I'd like to say thanks to all the city employees, staff, leaders, directors that have been assisting us in getting our goals met. It's easy for us to sit up here and make those goals, but you guys have to implement them, and thank you very much for keeping everything on track. Also very excited that we passed the agreement tonight for the workforce development. Something is very needed, not only the city of Enterprise, but throughout the state and nation, and very, very glad to see that happening. And I guess the other thing that I'm real excited about is we are making more and more progress towards the unsafe buildings and blighted areas by establishing that appeals board tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the areas being cleaned up as a result of having all of those pieces in place. Thank all you for coming tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you for everyone in attendance and everyone online. And I'm also very excited for our future with the SEC and all those students that are going to be passing through that facility one day. It's not only going to help our city of Enterprise, but the surrounding Wiregrass and the entire state. And I can see that we're going to add more to that building of other jobs, especially with the plumbing and all the other jobs out there. It's very important that we pass this. And like I say each time, we do have the best staff, the best department heads, best folks working in this city. You can see it each and every day out there. And I just wish everybody online, folks in here, just when you see those folks, just say thank you. Pat them on the back. They do a wonderful job. Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, ditto what everybody said so far. Mr. Long, can't thank you enough for the partnership, and what a wonderful legacy of Matt Rogers and Mr. Cooper, yourself. Danny said earlier, when we look back in 20, 30, 40 years, hopefully that, and I feel strongly it's going to be one of these things that that we're going to look back on and be proud of. And Mayor Cooper, I can't thank you enough for your relationships through the educational system. I think that was key in planting that seed with Mr. Rogers over a year ago, like we said. So I think this is going to be a big part of your legacy too. So, all right. Well, good night, everyone. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. We got a lot to sign here.